So there are many forms that horror films can take. You have supernatural horror, situational horror, slasher films, the list goes on and on. Among these many subgenres is one that has gained significant traction in the past decade. Found footage films are mostly portrayed from the perspective of the person who has recorded the footage. Cannibal Holocaust is one of the earliest examples of found footage horror. Another staple within this subgenre is the Blair Witch Project. This film is monumental for found footage horror. The marketing campaign behind this movie was very effective as well, especially for the time. Almost a decade later, found footage horror would have another milestone that would ultimately launch it into the mainstream. Paranormal Activity was initially circulated at film festival screenings in 2007, before the rights were required by Paramount Pictures for a theatrical release in 2009. This movie would reel in $194 million against a $15,000 budget, so competitor studios wasted no time producing countless imitations in an attempt to capitalize on the success of this production. However, this domino effect would eventually turn this promising concept into a repetitive cash cow. But the impact this film had on found footage cannot be understated. An incredibly simple premise turned out to be an effective avenue for horror. Yes, this particular subgenre has experienced some oversaturation in the past few years, but there also have been some very creative productions that have hit the big screen as well. Now, these three films are not part of today's list, but I will recommend these along with REC, for the simple fact that they are found footage classics. But I will warn you that Cannibal Holocaust is not for everyone. It does contain brutal scenes of rape, torture, and real animal mutilation, so keep that in mind before you consider watching that one. The films featured in this countdown are simply ones that I personally enjoy. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not saying these films are the best out there, and you are more than welcome to put your own recommendations down in the comments, or even if you disagree with my picks and think I'm some kind of moron that needs to die, that's also welcomed. Anyways, I think that's more than enough setup, so strap in for some exaggerated breathing, overacting, and really noticeable CGI, because here are 6 found footage horror films that you should watch. Number 6. The Last Broadcast. Predating the monumental Blair Witch Project, The Last Broadcast was released in 1998 and was written, directed, and produced by Stefan Avalos and Lance Weiler, who also starred in the movie. The picture follows a documentary filmmaker named David Lee as he investigates the death of Stephen Alvcast and Locus Wheeler, who were TV hosts for a public access show called Fact or Fiction. The murders took place on December 15th of 1995 during an expedition into the New Jersey Pine Barrens to find the mythic Jersey Devil. A troubled young man named Jim Seward, who accompanied the Fact or Fiction crew that night as a psychic assistant, was charged and convicted for the murders. After the mysterious death of Jim during his incarceration, a mangled tape shows up at the documentary filmmaker's doorstep. David Lee then questions the known associates of Fact or Fiction and the people who knew the alleged murderer Jim Seward. The official story does not line up with the facts, and the damaged footage begins to reveal what really happened that night in the Pine Barrens. During my first sit-through, I found this movie to be kind of boring if I'm going to be perfectly honest. That was until I saw the ending. The film's conclusion really caught me off guard. In fact, the film's ending is so intriguing to me that it's actually the reason that I keep returning to it. Seeing the film again, knowing its conclusion, brings a whole new perspective to its story. And I found myself asking, who exactly was this film made for? And furthermore, why was this film made? And I absolutely love that, when a film forces you to speculate and ask questions that can never truly be answered. The Last Broadcast was one of the first feature-length productions to be shot entirely on consumer-level digital video, which is really a remarkable achievement if you think about it. This was 1998 we were talking about here, many years before YouTube was even around. This production has inspired and helped shape the found footage genre and showed the world that 2 guys with a computer can put together a decent movie. I fully acknowledge that this is not going to appeal to everyone, especially when you consider what we've come to expect from found footage films in 2019. But if you enjoy the VHS movies or like watching shows on Investigation Discovery, then you just might enjoy this film for what it is. Number 5. Exists. Exists was released in March of 2014 and was directed by Eduardo Sanchez. A group of friends are heading to a cabin that is owned by one of the group's uncles. On their way there, they hit what they believe to be a deer, and they get out to investigate. Aside from some minimal damage, their vehicle seems fine, and they decide to keep going. Before they depart, they hear loud cries coming from the surrounding forest. The incident happened to take place while they were filming a prank. They then play back the footage to discover that what they hit appears to be walking on 2 legs and does not resemble any kind of deer. Their camping trip essentially gets turned into a game, and the rules are simple. If you get caught by the enraged Bigfoot lurking in the woods, you die. Exists is an all-around solid found footage film. Its premise is simplistic and unoriginal. However, with director Eduardo Sanchez, who co-wrote and co-directed the Blair Witch Project, we get a beautifully shot found footage movie with loads of suspense. If you can forgive a few weak fake-out scares and the Willem scream, you'll have a good time with this movie. It doesn't seek to redefine the genre, nor does it try to be something that it's not. This is a straight-up found footage Bigfoot movie. Nothing more, nothing less. Number 4. The House is October Built. Directed by Bobby Rowe, The House is October Built was originally an independently shot production that first debuted at Shockfest Film Festival in 2011. After New Regency and 20th Century Fox secured the rights to the movie, it was decided that most of the film would be reshot with the same cast and a bigger budget. Once the reshoots were completed, The House is October Built would have a limited theatrical release in October of 2014. A group of friends set out on a cross-country road trip to film their experiences with some of America's most extreme haunted house attractions. The crew seeks out a mysterious group known as the Blue Skeleton, who apparently move to different secret locations every year, and are known to employ some of the most extreme and elaborate tactics to terrorize people. To make a long story short, they do not find the Blue Skeleton. The Blue Skeleton finds them. This film is tailor-made for fans of extreme haunted house attractions. The House is October Built is a very unique approach to the found footage genre. A lot of what you see in this movie is 100% real. The haunted houses you see at the beginning of this movie are in fact real attractions, and the interviews you see are with real actors and attraction owners. Of course, at some point, the film furthers its own plot, but the transition is seamless. A real passion went into the making of this film. Unlike with the countless titles of lazy, unoriginal dog shit that pollutes the found footage genre, The House is October Built does not rely on cheap jump scares or some contrived story arc to put a bunch of unlikable characters into a dire situation. Everything here feels genuine. This film deserves to be appreciated for what it is, and I wish that there was more of its kind out there. Number 3. The Pyramid. Oh boy, I can already hear some of you typing away. Look, I know, alright? I know. But like I said at the beginning of this countdown, this is a list of films that I personally enjoy, and I'm going to subject you to my incredibly bad taste in films, okay? The Pyramid was released in the winter of 2014 and was directed by Gregory Levasseur. A film crew goes to Egypt to document the discovery of a 3-sided pyramid buried 600 feet below the desert's surface. The structure was uncovered by an archaeological team led by Miles Holden and his daughter Nora Holden. The country of Egypt is currently in a state of chaos because of a massive uprising against the government. Because of this, the archaeological team is ordered to vacate the dig site within 24 hours and head back to the States. Nora convinces her father to send a remote-controlled rover into the structure so that they can at least see what's inside before they leave. The rover suddenly goes offline, and the team, along with the documentary film crew, enter the pyramid to recover it. While exploring the pyramid's interior, the floor collapses, trapping the group inside. So the critics panned this movie when it came out. But if you ask me, I think this film is very enjoyable because it essentially combines found footage horror and The Mummy. I feel that this movie has a solid story, excellent acting for a low-budget production, and also has some genuinely disturbing scenes. The Pyramid flew under a lot of people's radars when it came out, and with its low rankings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, I doubt that anyone will really give it a chance now. So take my word for what it's worth. This movie is definitely worth at least one watch, especially if you're a fan of The Mummy. It's really a shame that this film didn't do well, because if it did, it probably would have inspired studios to make more Egyptian-themed horror films, because there isn't really a whole lot to choose from. And this piece of shit didn't really help matters either. Number 2. As Above, So Below. As Above, So Below was written and directed by John Eric Dowdle and was released in August of 2014. The film follows a young, ambitious alchemy scholar named Scarlett Marlowe as she pursues her deceased father's work and searching for the Philosopher's Stone, an ancient artifact that is said to grant eternal life and turn any metal into gold. After recovering a key from a collapsing cave in Iran, which she narrowly escapes, her search leads her to the catacombs beneath Paris. Her and her friends team up with a group of locals who know their way around the underground tunnels. While down in the catacombs, she discovers what her father has sought after his whole life. However, by doing so, she has awakened an ancient evil that has lied dormant for centuries. And to escape, the group must face their own personal hell, or be swallowed by the darkness. Sorry, I get a little carried away when I write these scripts. This film is very similar to our last entry, in both concept and execution. It uses its dark underground setting to its advantage to create situational suspense that propels the story forward. I was very pleased with this movie because it gave me precisely what I wanted. I've read reviews about this movie that accuse it of being clumsy, unspeakably corny, or cliched mediocrity. I have no idea what you have to do to become a certified film critic, but at this point, I'm convinced that the process involves a stick being inserted into your ass. I guess I just can't get on board with the sentiment that every movie I watch has to challenge me intellectually or has to be unique in some way. This was a thoroughly entertaining movie for me. It reminds me of an old GameCube game I used to play back in the day, called Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem, and that is always a welcomed nostalgia trip. Number 1. Grave Encounters. Grave Encounters was directed by the Vicious Brothers and was released in the summer of 2011. The crew of a paranormal investigation television show are filming their 6th episode at the abandoned Collingwood Psychiatric Hospital. To spice things up, they had the grounds caretaker chain the door shut so that they are trapped inside the asylum until 6 a.m. the next morning. After filming their episode, the crew begin gathering their equipment and await the caretaker's arrival. 6 o'clock comes and the caretaker is nowhere to be found. To make matters worse, one of their crew goes missing. Growing increasingly agitated, they eventually break down the door, but are utterly horrified to discover that what was the hospital's exit has now become another hallway. This hospital is more than just haunted. It is somehow alive and has trapped the crew within its corridors. Unlike the crew's past endeavors, they find themselves in real danger as they navigate the endless labyrinth of hallways, desperately searching for an exit, all while being terrorized by the ghost of former patients. If they are unable to escape, they may very well end up becoming patients themselves. This movie is brilliant from start to finish. Easily my favorite found footage film of all time. I've never been a fan of shows like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters. But this is quality entertainment right here. If there was a paranormal show out there that outright stated that it's all an act, and every episode was similar to this movie, it would probably be one of my favorite shows of all time. If you've never seen this movie, do me a favor and check it out. Then come back here and leave a comment and tell me what you thought about it. But please, for the love of God, stay far away from Grave Encounters 2. It's a pile of shit. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So do you agree with my picks? Leave a comment down below, and let me know what some of your favorite found footage titles are. This video was voted on by my subscribers in a community poll. So if you want in on choosing what the next video on this channel will be sure to hit subscribe with notifications turned on. I'll be having another poll next week to decide what the next countdown will be. And that's a wrap. Until next time, I'm your Uncle Unit. And remember, if you and your friends decide to go urban exploring in an abandoned building, there's a good chance a CGI monster is in there waiting for you. So make sure you have the camera rolling.
Window cam, good to go.
Yeah!